Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is a video to compare two of Roccat's mice, the Roccat Kone Pro Air and the Roccat Kone XP. Now these are two interesting mice from Roccat that are quite different. The Kone XP is obviously very striking with its RGB lighting. This is 3D RGB powered by 22 LEDs. And it also, as you'll see from these shots, has a lot more buttons than the Kone Air. Now I've unboxed and covered off both of these mice, and I'll link to those videos in the description in a bit more detail. But in this video I'm going to be comparing them and showing you the differences between them, talking about the highlights. They are obviously quite a bit different, with that white Kone Pro Air being a wireless mouse and the Kone XP being wired. The Kone Pro Air is actually more affordable though, which makes it interesting because wireless mice are generally more expensive. But the Kone XP, as you can see, packs in a number of really interesting highlights to it, not least of which is that really nice RGB lighting, but also a mass of programmable buttons. Now the Kone Pro Air was a very nice mouse to use and I really enjoyed it. It was also striking and interesting for a number of reasons, not least of which is that really interesting RGB lighting on the two main buttons and nowhere else. It also has a lightweight shell weighing in at around 75 grams, and it supports both wireless and Bluetooth. You get a small little wireless dongle included in the box, which can be stored in the mouse when you don't need it, which is obviously useful, and you can get up to 100 hours of battery life out of it and fast charging capability, so you're able to plug it in and get some fast charge. Now specs wise, both these mice are actually comparable in some ways. They both use Roccat's Owl-Eye sensor, which gives you up to 19,000 dpi. Both have 50 Gs of acceleration, and they both obviously work with Roccat's Swarm software and use Roccat's Easy Shift technology to give you extra button presses. What you will notice though is that the Kone Pro Air has considerably less buttons than the Kone XP. You only have two side thumb buttons, the standard button and the mouse wheel. There's no DPI, switching button or profile buttons that you'll see on the Kone XP, so obviously buttons wise is a bit more limited. It does, however, like the Kone XP, pack in some Titan optical switches, so you have optical mouse switches in there that are designed to register your clicks accurately and swiftly, and also are guaranteed to last a lot longer than traditional switches. And you can adjust things like debounce time within Roccat's Swarm software as well, so you can customize things like that and ensure the longevity of the mouse and the accuracy of it over time. Now side-by-side comparisons of these, when you see the two and just see how strikingly different they are, the Kone XP is obviously a lot more capable in a number of different ways, but this is going to be a personal preference thing. You can see that on top behind the mouse wheel, for example, you have a profile switching button, and that actually changes the RGB lighting so you know which profile you're on, programmed via Swarm software, so each color represents a different profile in there. You then have left and right tilt on the mouse wheel, so that works as a button action. You'll see that there are DPI up and down buttons by the main left button, and you also have 4 thumb buttons above your thumb and the Easy Shift button below it on the thumb rest. So you have a very nice ergonomic shape that you're used to with the Kone, but you also have a wonderful thumb rest with a button on it as well, so there's plenty of buttons here. You have 15 buttons and they can be programmed up to 29 different functions, and that's one of the highlights of Roccat's products, is that Easy Shift technology that allows you to program in that secondary layer of actions. Now I really liked the Kone Air when I reviewed it previously. It was a very nice large mouse with a really nice ergonomic fit, and it sits nicely in the hand. It sports a USB-C charging cable, so as I said, you can get fast charging with it. It has up to 100 hours of battery life, and because though it has RGB lighting, that RGB isn't particularly over the top, so it means it doesn't drain the battery too quickly. It also was unusual to see RGB lighting that isn't in the main body of the mouse, but instead sits in the fingertip area, so it sort of lights up your fingers while you're playing, which is a nice little accent to it and a highlight of it, and makes it stand out from the crowd in that it's obviously a lightweight mouse weighing in at 75 grams, and that's worth noting that the Kone Pro Air is considerably lighter than the Kone XP, which weighs in about 101 grams roughly. So they're quite different in quite a few different ways, and yet obviously they also have that cone name and the cone shape, and they're very comfortable to use and very capable thanks to the optical switches and the optical sensor and just the general setup of them. The Roccat software makes them really easy to program and set up a multitude of different things as well, and it's very nice. They both also have some very slick PTFE feet on the underside, so they're easy to move about, and despite the extra weight, the Kone XP is more than capable. Has some extra areas around, say for example, that thumb rest, so I found it easy to use, and despite the USB cable, there isn't any extra tug or nag or problems moving it around. There are, however, some minor gripes that I do have with it, and this will vary depending on your personal preference and your hand size. But I found that those 4 buttons at the top, you can see T1, T2, T3 and T4 for your thumb buttons, I don't think they're as easy to access as I'd like. You have the easy shift button on the bottom of it, and you can see me pressing it when the RGB lighting changes to let you know you're doing it. Now if you press and hold the easy shift button as standard, it gives you access to secondary actions on the other buttons that you can program within Swarm, which means you can set up macros and other actions and all sorts of other things. Might be media playback, for example, something as simple as a double tap, so you can set that up so you press the button once and it'll actually tap twice, things like that. So in theory, you should be able to press that and then press and hold the thumb button as well to activate that secondary layer. But what I found was the gap between that button and the top buttons is actually a bit too far. So you have to sort of lift your thumb up off the easy shift button to be able to press the buttons above it, which means it's a bit more difficult. That doesn't mean you can't program the other ones. And if you have a larger thumb, you might not struggle with this, and perhaps your hand positioning might be okay. You could obviously also adjust things like the DPI up and down buttons to be those secondary buttons. So there is customization options. Obviously you also have 4 buttons instead of just the 2 buttons on the side for the thumb button. So it's a lot easier to access there, and you could reprogram easy shift to be something else, so you could technically have 5. So you certainly have a lot of access to a lot more buttons, and I think that's a bit more preferable. Now you can see a size hand measurement here just to give you an idea of how big it is in my hand, and they're roughly comparable in size because they are both from that cone sort of design, and they are both ergonomically shaped for right-handed gamers, which means you get a very comfortable fit and a nice overall aesthetic. I really like both these mice. As a wireless mouse, a large wireless mouse, the Kone Pro Air is fantastic for large-handed gamers, but my personal preference is definitely the Kone XP because it gives you a lot more access to a lot more things. There's some really cool RGB lighting, DPI switching, profile switching, easy shift, multitude of buttons. It's really comfortable and it's really capable too. Stick around to hear clicks and sounds from both the mice, and thanks for watching. This has been The Provoked Prawn. Hope you found this video useful, interesting, hilarious, or otherwise. Take a look at these other videos that I think you might find interesting as well. And have a look at the description for links and other information you might find useful. Click that join button to see the benefits of being a member of my YouTube channel. And most importantly, have a great life.